Hi and welcome to Mixing Like a Pro. This is Dami. In today's video, we're going to discuss the common mistakes that you might be making when it comes to mixing low end. So I'm just going to share with you some tips, some things that I do, and also some things to be careful moving forward. So the first thing we're going to look at is your monitoring system. Know the tools that you use, your headphones. Know them very well. Know what a good bass tone sounds like in that headphone. And you can do this by listening to songs that you like, favorite songs. Know, okay, this is what the bass sounds like in here, or the level of the bass in here. This is what it sounds like. I use the Neumann NDH30, right, for my mixes. And I realized that the first time that I got this, my bass volume, kick volume was always kind of super loud. It sounded fine in here when I'm mixing, but when I listen in other systems, I realized that, oh my god, that's too loud. So I had to learn what a good volume sounds like in the headphone. And that's kind of what I've been doing ever since. And even up until today, I still always, sometimes I get carried away, but then I have to dial it back in because I like it when it's loud, but it doesn't work for the music. So you know your system very well. The other thing is, if you're mixing on speakers, now you have more problems to deal with, because when you're using headphones, all your acoustic problem is solved. You don't need to worry about it. But when you're on monitors, first of all, you need to have a treated room if you're mixing on the monitor to stop the high frequency and all of your mid-range reflection, right? That's why we use acoustic treatment. But the most important thing is also bass traps. You need to be able to capture those excessive bass tone that moves to the corners of the room to contain your bass tone. Now, I'm not an acoustician, so this is not my field, but here's one trick I want to tell you. If you are currently in your room, if you are currently in a room, small room, maybe it's treated, but you're having issues with bass, here's one thing I used to do. I discovered this by mistake, it wasn't intentional. I realized that when I go into my closet, a small room, let's say 8 feet by 8 feet. Maybe that's good enough for what I'm talking about. So that's an extremely small room, or 10 feet, maybe just to be on the safer side. I realized that when I go into the closet, all of a sudden, right, which is opposite where my speakers are, I begin to hear the low end. It's loud in there, and I like it being loud in there. I hear it and I can tell what my bass sounds like. Is my bass tight? My low end, is it tight, or is it just kind of everywhere? I'm telling you, this was a key to my mixes back then, just going into the closet. Then I'll play other songs that I like, or reference songs, and then I realized the reference songs, oh man, the bottom end right there is really tight, it's nice. So that's how I didn't do it for all the songs, but when I remember to do it, and most times I will just go into the closet to feel what the bass sounds like, because your bass sound wave, I believe they move to the corners of the room, like I said, and then it's kind of just loud in there. So that's one tip, because here's what you find out. You could be sitting in front of your monitors. Even right now, I'm about 4 feet away, I think. 3 to 4 feet away from my speakers, and I have a sub. If I'm mixing on my systems right here, which I don't really do, I mostly work on the headphone. Let's say I'm mixing on there, I might not fully hear the low end very well. So I realized that the distance from where you're seated to where your speakers are can determine how much low end you will hear. So most times when I'm maybe done mixing and I don't want to hear it on the headphones, I can just sit down on my couch right there and then listen, and I can feel the low end more. And that gives me an idea too. Okay, is your low end fine? If it was a listener just sitting there, what would they think of your mix? Now remember, my room is treated to a certain extent. I don't have bass traps on every corner. I only have on 3 corners, because that last one is where my door is, so I could not put one in there. So keep that in mind to find that spot in your room, if it exists, where you can hear the bass well. It doesn't need to be clean. You don't need to hear other things, just the bass. That's all you want to hear. And what you're looking for is Is it controlled? Are there notes jumping boo, boo, and jumping back down? No, you want to control the bass. And is it tight? Is it clean down there? So because most of those things you would not hear on any headphones that you're working on, you won't hear it. So I don't do that mostly because I have what I do in the DAW now that helps me control those problems, that can help me get some, to help me control my bass, which I'm going to show you. Now, the other thing also is your levels when it comes to your kick and bass. Like I said in that my video about balancing your mix, right? I think balancing still is the bedrock of a great mix. A mix that is not balanced is not a good mix, right? That's just plain. So in essence, just make sure that you can balance your kick and bass and relate them to the other instruments in the song. The next one I'm going to talk about, and we're going to do some examples just so you know. You've heard high pass filter, which is good. Here's maybe some quick tips. Now, you don't need to follow this as a rule, but as a guideline. Is find sometimes what I do depends on the song. On the bass, I could high pass all the way to like 30. And then all of a sudden I realized that my kick and bass in the low end there sounds really tight and clean. It happens a lot, and you'll be amazed the trick what iPass can do when it comes to your low end. Don't be scared that if you cut 40 hertz, you're gonna lose all the low end. No, I can cut 40 on the kick drum, but just leave the bass. Or even on the bass, I'll cut 20 because you don't need that rumble. Anything below 20 is just kind of not good. You're not going to lose your low end because you're still boosting 160. Those things are still there, but anything below 20, you don't need it, or even below 30 sometimes, 30 and below. Because when you cut 20 hertz and you're boosting 60, if you're using a low shelf EQ, it's still boosting those things, right? So a little bit of carving out on there, high pass filter on your low end can really save your mix and help you get a very nice tight low end. But just play around with that. Even when I'm mixing maybe hybrid on my hardware here, I use the high pass right there. It's set to 15, sometimes 22. So on my mix, I'm mixing through that. Even though I'm mixing through it with the high pass in there, sometimes I still use, if I need it, I still use in the DAW. So keep that in mind. High pass is your friend. Another thing is EQing bass tone. Sometimes you might feel like it's a bass, I don't need to add more low end to it because the low end in there is enough, and I don't need to clean up. I've realized that sometimes there's some nasty build up on bass instruments, especially around 200. Some, just like the kick drum, sometimes that I personally don't like. It's just too muddy down there. So sometimes I will go there and I will inspect it. 200, cut it, or 300 if that's where it is, cut it, and then I can boost my mid range, anything from 800 and above, to get that nice bass tone, because we feel low end more than we hear it, but we hear the top end more than we feel it. If that your mid range more than you feel it. So that's another second trick on low end. Same thing also on your kick drum. Kick drum, most times I discover that around 90 to about 110, and I think I said that in one of my videos. You can look at it. I think that's the drum processing. I realized that there's always some type of annoying build up resonance bump in sometimes on the kick drum, and it's around that 100, sometimes 100 exactly, where pum 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 pum, it doesn't sound good, not contributing anything good to the kick drum. So I can go in there and cut it out, inspect that a lot. So, and I discovered this when I was mastering. So I'm inspecting areas to boost, maybe when I'm mastering the low end, then some sections around 100 just sounds really horrible. By just dipping it out in the mastering stage, whether it's 1 dB or half a dB, all of a sudden you kind of get a little bit of that cleanup creates some tightness in the low end. So those are the three things you want to look at. Don't be shy to go to your kick drum around 100 and dip. just don't dip by default. Look for it because sometimes the 100, depending on the kick drum, can sound good and you don't need to do anything to it. So you can boost your low end, your kick drum at 60 or whichever 100. Boost your bass too, maybe at 100 at 60. It doesn't matter. Just play around with it. I'm giving these numbers to just give you an idea, but it's not a rule. It's not a rule. Yeah, I know you can boost 60 on your kick drum. I do it by default. I use in my template, I have the API. So 50 is selected in there and it's already boosting like 2 dB on kick drum. And most times, I still go back and move things, but I just leave it the way it is because it sounds good. But if it doesn't, um, I'll change things up. So that is that on when it comes to EQing your low end to get tightness. Now, you can mix low end, you can EQ them, you can balance them well, but you have one enemy still, and that enemy is when it comes to dynamics. The kick drum on its own is fine because the kick drum is not changing it's not changing necessarily in like huge volume. There's some dynamics to it, but it's consistent, the same tone. It's not giving you a different note. But the bass, on the other hand, is a different beast on its own. So your bass, you're playing on C right now. Boom, 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 boom. You go, you play the A note. Some of the notes, maybe is the La or the 6 of any key you are on, in a way sound louder than the other notes in the song. So there's always kind of a volume boost. When you look at the waveform might not show you that. So that's why the waveform is good, but it's not your one fix all type of thing, right? You use your ears too. I can play 1 now and I play 4, and the 4 on that key that I'm on will sound super loud. This is where dynamics needs to come in place. So what do I do in that case? I would usually have maybe a compressor that just helps me to control my overall bass tone, bring the low things down, any picking sound, bring it down as well. But the most important thing, this is my secret, what I do is that I use a multi-band on the bass. And I go from maybe like 70 downwards, mostly just 60 downwards. No matter how much compression I've done before the multi-band, most times I still feel like my bass in the low end will get too mushy and just moving all over the place, not controlled. So I discovered that multi-band is my friend, is the lifesaver. Now, I don't like using tools that just save me like that because I feel like if I don't have them, I won't be able to do mix. But I've tried without it on and then I ran back to it again. Now I use the Wave C4 because that's the multiband I have and other ones. You can use any multiband compressor that you have at your disposal, right? So without wasting much time, let me just show some audio examples on what we've been talking about. Let me play the entire. Okay, so first now let's listen to, I think the low end on here, this is not mixed by the way. So it's a song I produced a while back, not mixed, but just show you some example. Here's the kick drum. And all these plugins were here when I produced the track. When I was producing, that's when all this was here. Because that's the thing, you gotta think you have to use the tools to get the sound you want on the production level stage, not waiting for it to come to mixing. Let me play the bass. There are two different kind of bass in here. Okay, and then this one right here. So with this, I already did a lot of stuff to it, right? So it has the low end in there, but then it also has the top end, which is kind of stereo. Right. So I think the thing I want to talk about then is what I was showing you about, telling you about using EQ. So I'm going to let me listen to this one kick first. Hold on. Let's see what it sounds like. Okay, so that one is basically just to get the attack. So I'm gonna come here. I will use the REQ. This is on the kick drum. It's just boom, boom, that low end. But anyways, I'm gonna play with the bass. Okay, that's the sound we have. Now let me engage the high pass right here. And I'll go to maybe 30. So at 30 right here, the kick drum all of a sudden sounds tighter and clean. It has a space to live. But at the same time too, I also felt like no, I felt I lost some low end on there. So let me bypass the bass. I'm sorry, or mute the bass and let's listen to the kick only. You see, it almost sounds the same, just a little bit clean. Let me exaggerate this frequency so you know exactly what is coming out, what we're removing. I'm gonna do this less and go all the way to 20. So that's from 20 below. That's what we're hearing. That's super low. So you're not going to even hear that. So yeah. So at 30, I think was fine, or 25, like I said. Now on the same kick drum, let's inspect around. Now I have not tried this, but we're going to see it. I was talking to you about 100. Let's inspect the bass, the kick drum. So it's around that 120 right there. See, 86 sounded okay, nice. 100 sounded fine. But in this case now, look at that. Definitely there. When I go to like 130, 140, it's sounding fine. That's good. Good. But right here, see, and you'd be amazed at how much this is gonna clean up your kick drum. So I can use a narrow Q like that. I mean, my sound subtle, but it's not. But hopefully you can hear the definition. All of a sudden, it's like the kick drum is now, boom, in the middle, centered and clear. I'm going to play that again. Just two moves, simple moves, high pass filter 25 or 26, and then finding that frequency that doesn't make sense, that's not adding any value to our kick drum, removing that. Now, let's play that with the bass. I'm gonna bypass it now. So let's get, I'm gonna play the other bass tone. Because this kind of already have the side chain stuff going on. So let's a bass tone like this too. I'm just gonna drag this up here. So I'm gonna bypass both EQ. Bring it back in. Yeah, you can feel it more a little bit on the kick drum. Let's bring this bass in. And we're not gonna bypass everything, like you said. It's if you need it, that's when you just do it. Now I don't think this needs the iPass in there. What I think this needs instead is this. I would like to, when I talked about EQing to find nasty frequency in the bass and remove. So I think around maybe like 200, 300, something maybe not good there. And this is preference too, I'm gonna play with the kick drum. Because that can be the tone. I mean, I produce this and I can be okay with that. But just for example purposes. Right here. Say that was too much. But I do like the tone. And like I said too, we can boost. So if I'm going to boost right there, let's see. Okay, I think I need a 6-band. Let me bring this. I'm just showing an example. There's one more thing we're going to look at here on the bass. Now this is the other, what we talked about, the EQing of the bass, right? And I'm going to talk about what I do to control as well. All right, so one here, I can go back to changes to the high pass filter, maybe set it to 22 or 20 is fine. And I'll show you why I'm doing that. And let's grab this band right here. Let's change this to low shelf. So this is 80. Let me remove the high pass. Bypass the plugin. Now this 200 I'm cutting here seems to be a very huge part of that bass sound. So that's the reason why I cut that, because it's still not very nice, but I boosted the frequency around it. Bring this in for tightness, because play with the kick drum. Now I'm gonna bypass the EQ. Okay, so that's one way. I'm going to remove this. A different way, and that's probably what I would do for this bass, won't be to use an EQ. I'm going to use a multi-band. This is the C4. Where is it? It's my favorite. I use this on on vocals as well. Now, what I'm hearing when it comes to controlling my low end, so I'll grab maybe this band right here. I can move all the way to about maybe 70. Right, two things I'm gonna do here. But 70, let's play that. No, let me go back to the default state. This is what I meant to move. No, not again. Okay, anyways, okay, I'm gonna play that. Bypass this band. Now I'm focused on just this one band right here. I'm telling you, this is night and day. This saves my mix every single time. Even if you don't like hear it, it's kind of like a safeguard what I would put in there to know that, okay, I'm safe. I hope you just kind of get what I mean. So anything below 64 right now or around that area, I'm controlling it. And sometimes I would go and adjust the attack and release too. I might do that. But when you're doing that, you need to also kind of just listen make sure you're not introducing any distortion. Most times not really on that low end. But if you're in the mastering stage, yeah, you got to be careful. So bypass. Bring it in. And it cleans it up. And then I can even then boost my gain maybe slightly on that band. So bypass this EQ and this. I hope you can even hear just those two things. This and the EQ we did previously on the kick. Tightness already coming. And it seems like things are sounding louder. But did we boost anything? We did not boost anything here. Even here, I'm reducing, so I'm kind of compensating with the gain, not really boosting anything, but tightness is coming and clarity. And on the bass, not done yet. You see how I brought this band here around that. What I want to do is I want to solo. I want to hear what's happening here. Right there on the bass. And I want to control that some way. So I'm going to, instead of using the EQ, use the multi-band here. I'm making the release faster than slow. Slow seems to be pumping. Okay, that's fine. We've obviously lost volume, so I will increase. Play with the kick. Bypass. And bypass what we've done. Okay, and that's it. So on the kick drum, obviously down, you can go around 60. I can, you can just do what you want now to get low end back. Right. So we bring in the low end. Boom. Let me exaggerate it. So that's around 57. I don't always go and type 60. No, once you boost anything in that range, that's fine. So we see we've added low end to the kick, even the bass. Let's even try it. I'm gonna use, sometimes this works a lot, the Potec, maybe on the bass, like let's try 100. And you notice that I put that before my multi-band compressor, and that's for a reason. Sometimes I will, after the multi-band, after I've controlled that low end, I can go back in there and then add a little bit of, sometimes not crazy because I don't want to mess up what I've just done. Just add a little bit of low end back after I've compressed the bass. And in my mind, there's just a way I'm thinking about that, right? I'm like, okay, I've EQ'd my bass to where it sounds good. I've compressed it, controlled it, but I just want to, and compressor, what does it do? It kind of just hold things. So I want to open things back up, if that makes sense. Then I'll add maybe an EQ after it. You can do that on vocals too. You've compressed your vocals, it seems like you've choked the life out of them in some way. I'm like, I want to add some natural stuff, neutral stuff back. Then I go back and add EQ. If that makes sense. Just that's kind of the way I process it in my mind. But I'm always gentle with it though, because you can go and mess it up again. Boom, boom, boom. And our kick drum sounds good. Let's play with the rest of the mix. That's probably too much boost right here on the low end, I'll be honest. Like, yeah. Okay. Bye. Right, I hope that was helpful. So the discussion part at the beginning of the video is where maybe the nugget is, but then I was able to also give you some examples on how I will approach that. That is it. Hopefully it was helpful. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos, and thanks for your support. I'll see you again. Bye bye.